Okay, welcome back. This is the second part of the sound design work that I wanted to do with you guys. And just to let you know where we left off, I didn't like the UI sounds, but we did learn how to put some UI sounds into our game. And I'll just show you what I managed to do in a few minutes, well, longer than that. And I have something I'm kind of happy with, not super proud of, but happy with. So if we play this, here's my menu. Right, so some different tones happening there. Same thing with the other menus. Okay, let's quit and I'll show you exactly what that is. And so what's kind of cool about this is it's just a tone. But if we go into our main menu and look at this wild mess here. So the sound that I only have one sound here. I made a new folder for UI sounds because I think we're going to need some other folders. So I really only have one UI sound. It's that. But what I'm doing is if you expand this down, you can change things like volume and pitch directly here, and you can also change start time. So remember, if you recall, in the last video, I think I might have been futzing around trying to figure out, well, how do you change the start time? And so this is nice because you can keep your asset count down, and this way you can make different types of sounds without having to go out, outside of Unreal Engine, and doing that can really help you. And so what I did was just kind of change the pitch multiplier on a few of these, especially the ones where it's, you're hovering. So this is the options one. I put, 1.2. So it's all the same sound. I'm just using the pitch multiplier to make it sound different. Okay, so in this video, what I'd like to do is I'd like to start to introduce how do you place sounds in the 3D world, and a little bit about some basic sound design concepts for 3D games. And instead of just flat 2D sounds, I think what I want us to do is, like I mentioned last time, is I want us to create a walk, like some walking sounds. So when we're moving around, it's like, we're just not floating, we're walking, because eventually we're going to be replacing our capsule with something that's like a little more interesting to look at, and has some animations and whatnot. And so I'd like to be able to have it make walk sounds. But the thing about making walk sounds is I also wanted to not always make the same sound every time. And I also even want the option, if I care about it a lot, I want it to make different sounds depending on different types of materials that it's walking over. And you can see immediately how detailed sound design can be and how important it is. And so the reason I picked a walk sound really is because we could pick a jump sound and probably get similar types of knowledge, but I think that would immediately kind of, again, it would set this particular type of aesthetic. Like if you had some like sound, then it's going to be like, I don't know, it's going to influence us subconsciously and into making, something that maybe we wouldn't have normally made. And again, I think I mentioned this in a couple videos ago. This begins to come directly into this world of art, and so you're going to be impacted one way or another, but at least through this, using some walking sounds, we can toss it out if we don't like it, and we still know how to do a little bit more sound design within the engine. Another thing it gives me the opportunity to do is I'm going to jump over here to one of my favorite resources for sounds, especially ones you don't have to pay for. So this is freesound.org, and it's got quite a lot of sounds that are available. Massive sound data set. And it's a good place to go when you want a little bit of inspiration and whatnot. And for me, I'm going to look for walk sound. I've logged in. It requires an account, but it's not too bad. It's free. And I'm going to pick a walking sound here. I think this one is fine. Yes, it is. I downloaded it previously to check. Okay. Cool. And so let's open that up. It should be my recent files here. Okay. And for some reason it went on to another monitor. Let's see here. All right. So if we play this back, sounds like it's the file, right? So what I want to do now is I'm going to pick a few walking sounds, a few of them that are different, and then I'm going to I want to create some sort of randomness when the player walks. So that one sounds fine. So I'm just selecting this kind of little area here, and if you go to File, Export, and then you can export selected audio, and I've already exported the ones that I like, walk 1, walk 2, walk 3. So just to cut down on the video time. So I had gone ahead and exported each of them here. So if you select ones that you like that one maybe, you can go to File, Export, Selected Audio, and that would be walk 2. And then maybe this last one, this one here, it could be good for 3. I think that's what I had chosen, just that part, right? So once you do all of that, you can come in back into the engine, and I'm going to make a new folder. I'm going to call this FX for sound effects. I'm also going to take my UI sound and drag it over here and choose to move, not copy, and move it there. So open up the FX folder, right click, import, take your 3 sounds, open them. Here they are. I didn't normalize these. So you can normalize them. I said, you should always normalize your sounds. You can also raise the volume, but because it's just a walk sound, I feel like it's maybe something that could end up, kind of sinking into the background, but we'll get the point across. Another thing I want to do, so let's play it back. Okay, sounds fine. It's like somebody walking across some wood boards. Let's see. So now you might be thinking, okay, how can I make this random? Well, where's the best place to put it? Well, I think the best place to put it is in the player controller, because that's where we have this movement, this keyboard movement here. So when we can start, dropping these sounds in here and having some random thing happen, and based on the results of that random integer or something, then we're going to play this other sound, and that's going to be our walk function. We're going to make one like that. You don't have to do that. So the engine has something called a sound cue. So if you right click and go to sounds, we can add a sound cue. The behavior audio playback is defined within sound cues. So anything more advanced than what we've been doing so far, or some ambient music that you might want to have throughout a level, should generally be placed in a sound cue, because it's going to give you more control over the properties of the sound and the sounds that you want to have. So I'm going to choose sound cue, and I'll do sc_random walk. Okay, and then open this. So if we open it, we get an output. Looks like a speaker. And so this is the final output of whatever it is we're going to do. And if you right click on this, it looks a lot like our blueprint editor, but this is for sound. So we want random. So we're going to take a random branch here, and that random branch will output. And since we have 3 sounds, I'm going to just plus on the input. So we want to plug 3 sounds into this, and then it should just randomly choose one and put that out. So sounds are called wave players, or wave players can play sounds. So I'm going to copy paste this 3 times. And each one, if you look on the left, that's the details panel here. You can select it. You can also save the sound as looping, which is kind of cool. So we have walk. That will be walk 1. This one will be walk 2. And the last one is walk 3. Cool. So we just plug these in. Great. And then if we wanted to play the cue just to see what's going to happen, we can. And you can see kind of visually what's getting called, right? I'll click it very fast. It's like they're running across this. Okay, it's not bad. It's very much for a wood floor, but you can have any sounds. You can really have any sounds you would want in here, and they could be made random. Like you could imagine some ambient sounds of birds, and you'd put a bunch of bird sounds in, and then maybe it'd randomly pick a few. Okay, so now that we have this, I think we're done with that one. We can also close this, and let's go back into our player character here and think about our approach. So I want to put this in the input axis forward back. And what this does is, if you recall, this is always firing off a value between -1 and 1, or whatever this scale is, right? So if we wanted to scale it even higher, it could be negative whatever and positive whatever. And so if your first instinct is to then say, well, let's just try to play sound, then that's wrong, because it's going to play that sound a lot, quite a bit, as much as it possibly can, and it's not going to sound very good. Let me delete this too. Okay. So what we actually want is a little bit of logic here, and the logic, we need some logic. So we definitely need a branch. And so we want to check some stuff. And what do we want to check? Well, we want to check if the player is, we want to know that they're moving. So we want to know that there's some velocity happening here. And so that's really what it is. So if we grab the character movement component and we bring out a reference to it and we type velocity, we should be able to perfectly get velocity, right? And this velocity is a vector, right? Because it's going to be in some direction, up, down, left, right, whatever. So it's a vector, and that vector has a length. So that's why I want to drag off this and do get vector length or vector length. And now this is better, because now what we're going to have is any length greater than 0. Any vector length that's greater than 0 means you have some velocity. So that's going to be our check, right? So anything float greater than 0, this is my way of saying, are we moving? If you recall, we had this in our AI character, and we had it was basically like an enum that we could select a list from. It's like idle or moving to point or something. So that was on the navigation bounds or navigation mesh that was able to tell us if something was pathing, if it said you're pathing along this navigation mesh. In this case, we've got to use velocity, and that'll be okay, because anything that's greater than 0 says that we are moving. And so that solves our first problem. And our first problem is big, because I can't even play it for you. If I try to do that, it would be pretty terrible and could potentially crash the engine. Speaking of crashing the engine, save. Haha. Okay. So if that's true, then I want to play a sound. So I want to play a sound, but I don't want to play a sound 2D. I want to play a sound at a particular location. So let's just get that there so we know we got it. Play sound. What kind of sound do we want? I mean, for now I can just say SC random walk. So that'll play the sound cue. So that's going to execute the sound cue, and then where should it play it? You don't have to do this. I like to do these things because I feel like it's kind of cool, and especially if you're working on a VR version or you're working on a VR project, I think this will add to the immersion effect somewhat. So I'm going to go into my viewport, add a new component, and I'll describe to you why I'm doing it this way. Here, I added an arrow, and I'm going to call it feet. And I'm going to pair it to the mesh. So here it is, this arrow, and I'm going to move it down approximately where the feet are. So I add an arrow because it's just a way visually for me to see where these are, the feet are, without having it affect the world, but it also gives me a reference inside of my event graph to put the location. So the sound should be spawned at the feet. And what this does is, I mean, for right now, you're like, why did you bother? Why didn't you just spawn it directly at the actor location, right? So if we we can get a reference to self if we want. Not that it's needed, and then get actor location, and then just plug that in and you're done. I wanted to do this because, again, it gives you the option of, let's say your character was really, really big and there's lots of different sounds that it's going to make, and so maybe the player's really small, and so you definitely want to think of, and it's a first-person perspective, then having that sound spawn, directly at the actor's location might be the wrong place for that sound to spawn. Or if there's some speech, you might want to put that at the head of the character. These are all parts of sound design that I think end up, bringing a lot of immersion, and people pay attention and I think enjoy those. So let's just go ahead and look for feet and get a reference to that arrow, and then get the location from there. We can do get location. Right. Get world location. Sure. That's where we will, and then we can just drop that in there. Cool. Okay. So if we compile this, now I think we're ready to play it. I should really go into the other map. Oh, that's not good. Immediately, you heard that, right? So, yeah. Whoa. Not good. Two bad things happening that I kind of knew about. So the first bad thing is when we were falling or jumping, we were making this walking sound. So we definitely want to filter for that. So we need a condition. And that condition, let's see if we can make a little bit more room here. And that condition can come off the character movement. It's called is walking. So is walking. And let's do that as another branch. So I will plug it in like that. Okay. So if is walking is true, and then we have some velocity, then we can go ahead and play that sound. And we still have one more thing we can work on. Well, unless you happen to like that. Oh, sorry. Is walking. Yeah. Not is walkable. And we'll plug that in. Okay. Great. All right. So play. Okay. So now we can do that jump without any noises. But yeah, moving forward that's crazy. And that's a kind of expected because, again, we're not blocking. Once those conditions are true, we have any velocity, it's going to fire this off as fast as it can. So let's go ahead and give ourselves a bit of room here. Okay. And we'll try something. We can go like that. And the character movement component. Okay. I'm going to add a delay. Just a simple delay, and make it like a 0.5 second delay. Just a block. So that will basically, this delay will block it'll still be firing, but it'll have to wait at least half a second. Well, it'll wait exactly half a second. And let's play. Nice. Okay. So that's stopping it from blocking. And it's actually kind of cool. Yeah. And it works when we go backwards and forward. But we already know we have a game mechanic where the player slows down. And so we should think about kind of at least having a way to deal with that here in Blueprints. And here's my thinking. So because we have this character movement component, let me just clean up clean this up here. We can actually get its walk speed. Remember that? Get walk speed. So if we get max walk speed, then we have this float value. And I think it's like 600 or so. One thing we can think about doing is dividing it by some float. And we'll deal with what that float should be, like how we should be driving that float value later. I just want to actually plug this in and thinking about it with 600, we maybe need something like 2000 or something just to try to play. That's like fast, right? But that's what's driving this, like that, meaning, you know, this divisor here is what's driving our walk, so that speed at which that's being called, and kind of the speed at which it seems like we're moving. So if I made this 1000 and play that, let's see what we get. It's slower, right? Sorry, there's a dog outside. Cool. So I kind of liked 2000 to start with. Maybe I don't. It's a little fast. Let's do like 1800. And we should remember, we'll remember this number. And I think as we go along, and you know, we can maybe even promote this later on. But I'd like to kind of link up this divisor. Hopefully, we will scale with our walk speed. But it definitely won't, actually, because as our walk speed is reduced, then, you know, this is going to be reduced by an even greater amount. So we'll need some like walk speed times. So we'll figure that out later as we're playtesting, because the main point that I wanted to get past to you is that we have this thing called a sound cue, and we have many things that it can do. I mean, the one thing I used it to create a random, basically play random wave files and output those. But there's a lot of other things that it's able to do as well, play different dialogue depending on situations and whatnot. And so this is I think a pretty cool way of creating and doing some basic sound design, right? Because we have this like walk that sounds different, and if you could put like 10 different types of walk sounds if you really want, and it kind of sounds okay. Yeah, it needs a little work, but yeah, the basics are there. So very cool. Thanks.